cities. I'm partnering with the leadership in those cities. And I have 5 community meetings a year, so at each of my meetings, you're going to have the opportunity to hear from one of your council members from Citrus Heights. So by the end of the year, you will have heard from all 5 of them. I wanted to start with our mayor, Jeannie Bruin, and so Jeannie has agreed to participate in the program tonight. And so how it's going to work, I'm going to be speaking for 15 minutes, and then Jeannie will come up and speak for 15 minutes, and then we'll both come up and you can have at us with questions, comments, advice, problems, everything you can think of. And so before we begin, I would like to invite you to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this evening I wanted to give you a brief update on homelessness, but before I begin, if you are, whether or not you are already signed up to receive my newsletter, how many of you are here and received a postcard invite? Okay. If you received a postcard invite, we've been sending those out for about a year, and we are going to try to, now that we have kind of let everyone know we're here and we have the meeting, we're going to try not sending the postcards out, but sending out email invites. If you don't have email, we'll call you to invite you. So what I wanted to ask, we're going to be, Vance, who is my special assistant in the back here, is going to be passing around a sign-up form. Even if you're already on my newsletter, if you can sign up, it will make sure that you get an invite to the Citrus Heights meeting. And I want you to know that our newsletter goes out to all the different areas of the district. So the newsletter you get in Citrus Heights is different than the newsletter they get in Antelope or Rio Linda. It's specific to your needs. There's things that we don't cover in Citrus Heights because you already have leadership that covers those things. And so we try to give you information that's pertinent to you as it relates to the county. And so that's why we're asking everyone, and I hope you don't mind signing it again. We just want to make sure we get that notice out to everyone. And if you don't have an email, put your phone number and we'll make sure you get a call. This evening I wanted to update you on homelessness at the county. On December 12th, we had a meeting and we received an update from our staff regarding countywide homelessness and the initiatives. And for those of you that have been coming to the meetings, you already know that the county has, over the past 2 or 3 years, been really focused on identifying where are we spending our money with homelessness, what can we do to make sure that the money we're spending is working, what is working and what's not. And we hired a special person, a coordinator, who came in, and actually the staff studied this for 1.5 years, and they came up with some homeless initiatives which we approved in 2017. Those homeless initiatives redesigned our family emergency response, which I was talking to you just about that. We determined that we wanted to not only preserve but support the Mather campus, which is doing a lot around homelessness and veterans. We worked with full service rehousing shelters, flexible supportive rehousing programs, and we had augmentation initiatives that worked with children. So basically, in a nutshell, we have shelters for seniors. We have resources, special resources for veterans. We have resources that are targeting young people who've aged out of the foster system or youth. Drug and alcohol treatment centers. We're working with mental health, and we're actually going to be meeting tomorrow at our Board of Supervisor meeting to talk about how we can expand some of our services around mental health. And so, and Medi-Cal. So the county had an amazing report for us at the end of the year, and I was kind of surprised. So one of the things that we approved in 2017 was we were going to do a 75-bed shelter, and we were going to try to add shelter space so that we could get more people through transitional housing and transition them into permanent housing. The problem we ran into was staff couldn't find a place where they could site that nobody wanted that, or the places we thought it would work was too close to the juvenile detention or too close to a school, or it was, we had a hard time. So the staff said, we want to put this money, we made a commitment to put this money to work fast. How do you feel about us doing what we call a scattered site model? The scattered site model is single family residences with 5 people or less. And in a situation like that where you have wraparound services, you can quickly expand that by adding houses, and you can quickly contract it if you don't need it, because the county doesn't have to go out and buy all those houses. We can actually sublease, we can lease them. And so what the scattered site model is working amazing. We have 14 scattered sites, one in District 4. In the overall county in the last year. We have 3 outreach navigation, one in District 4, 7 housing assistance walk-in offices, one in District 4, and we have written formal agreements for with integrated county response that partners the DA, the sheriff, criminal justice, family and health services, drug and alcohol treatment, CPS, adult protective services, countywide, American River Parkway. So everybody's on the same page. We're all connected to all the resources. And so I want to let you know that in Citrus Heights also has a very aggressive plan to work with this homeless situation over time. And the services that I'm talking about with the county are only augmenting or adding to what's happening in Citrus Heights. So the number I'm giving you right now, which is the county exited 344 people to permanent housing in 2018. That includes the entire county. That, to me, was remarkable. I was thrilled to hear that. The county is focused on intensive case management, wraparound services that will help people get situated so that they can sustain themselves in that living situation. That's kind of what we're focused on. So the next step is going to be No Place Like Home, which is basically going to provide, we're estimating around $4.9 million this year, but it's kind of like one-time funding, but that will be money that helps developers who build affordable housing, basically puts them back to work, and helps us helps us add to our inventory of affordable housing. And how it works, an example would be, say an affordable housing developer wants to come in and convert a motel to affordable housing, or an apartment complex to affordable housing. They can dedicate around 30% of that project, 30 or 45% of that project, to affordable mental health care. And that will allow us to will allow them to pull down on Mental Health Services Act funds that will help finance that project, and in the end it helps pencil it out so that they can actually afford to they have the equity to get the financing for the rest of it. And so the long-term implications for that are that the county has to agree to put on-site services for 20 years in each of the projects we do. So we can't just go do as many, we have to make sure we can provide the services that we agree to provide. At the end of the day, we're making progress. They're going to be doing the homeless count here soon, the point in time count. And I talked to the director of Human Services at the county today, and he said pretty much everyone is anticipating that homelessness is increased. So at the end of the day, I'm not sure if we even lowered the amount of homeless people by doing so well. It's possible we may not be gaining on it because it's growing faster than we can help it, but the good news is we've helped a lot of people, and that's a good thing. On the parkways, I just wanted you know, you're not next to the parkway, but though you may know that we allocated $5.7 million in 2017 to clean up the parkway. In 2018, regional parks cleared 5,639 homeless camps from the American River Parkway, and 1,612 tons of trash. So I would love to tell you that it didn't come back, but it's coming. I don't know where they find all these. There's so many generous. I don't know where they find all that stuff, but it comes back, and so it's going to be an ongoing cleanup. There is also a pilot project that I had initiated conversations on in 2018, and the county voted to contract with Pride Industries, with linking Pride Industries with homeless people. You know, Pride Industries is that organization in Roseville that works with special needs folks and helps put them into jobs. You know, they have oversight, and they do jobs that they can do. Like some of them package tea, 10 bags of tea in a box, and they're packaging. Some of them are working building computer boards. And Pride trains them and oversees their work and makes sure they deliver on contracts. Sometimes they get them to work. Well, what we're going to be doing is partnering with Pride Industries to put homeless people to work in the parkway, cleaning up the parkway. And so our goal is to get 77 people jobs. And believe it or not, there are veterans and there are seniors who already have Social Security or disability or some kind of revenue that helps us partner them with some kind of a housing situation that can sustain itself. But some young people don't have that. Some young people that are out there would love to have a job or have a leg up, but they don't have those kinds of resources. So this is a way, even if they're not ready to be all together there or they don't know how to get to the job, this is a way to connect them to work and get them started. I wanted to let you know that the Inspector General, the issue with the Inspector General is it's not completely resolved. We're still working with the sheriff on an understanding of how the Inspector General will access the sheriff department, but at the end of the day, the board did agree on a contract, and we will be going out for an RFP to hopefully we're going to find the next Inspector General fairly quickly and get them on board so that they can be working for us. We also now have our Veteran Advisory Commission in place. All the board members have been appointed, and they have their first meeting on January 17. They're going to have 6 meetings a year, minimum. And so on the 17th, they'll be determining who their chair and vice chair are, and they'll be picking their meeting dates. And so I just wanted you to be aware that how many veterans do we have in the room? Quite a few. Your voice is now elevated. You have an advisory to the Board of Supervisors. If there's important things you need them to know, that's a good place. You can always still go, I want to know what your issues are too, so that I can try and help. But that just makes you, it elevates your voice. And so get involved, know what they're doing, know what the issues are in the region so you can share your issues with the region. And also, lastly, I want to say, I'm almost on time, Jeannie. I want to say that it's that time again. And in District 4, every year, Well, when we started in 2017, we did some surveys. And the surveys were for a couple reasons. Number one of my campaign promises was that I would never forget who I worked for. And so in order to stay connected with you, I need to know what you're thinking. And so the survey was a way for me to know how my district is feeling about things, to get feedback from you. It's going to ask some additional questions this year. It's going to ask a lot of the same questions. One thing we did notice over time was that as we sent out surveys, when I first started in this job a year and a half or 2 years ago, the top priority was public safety and roads and homelessness. And now the top priority is homelessness. So we're finding that we can begin to see trends, and so you'll see some of the same questions. You're also going to see some questions about some possible propositions that might be on the ballot in 2020 at the state level to just kind of get a feel for how you feel about those. And so I want to encourage you to fill out that survey. If you're not already getting my email newsletter and you haven't received it, you can go on Facebook and or you can go to saccounty.net to my website and access it. At this time, I'm very excited to have Mayor Jeannie Bruin, who is a longtime friend and a longtime city leader in Citrus Heights. She is going to speak and give us an update, and I know there's a lot of things going on in Citrus Heights, so she's the one to share that with us. And then after that, we'll have questions, both of us up here, for you to ask us questions and answers.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Sue for inviting me. This was a nice surprise. And we served side by side for 4 years, and then now we still serve side by side, but in a little different capacity. We both sit on the sanitation boards together, and that's always an exciting assignment because we get to deal with sewers all day. But thank you, Sue, for inviting me today. A couple things that I want to talk to you, and I know 15 minutes is going to go really quickly. First of all, we, as a council, as you know, we had our elections in 2018, and the three of us that were, two of us re-elected and one new council member that was elected, we each, at our last council meeting, appointed or selected a planning commissioner to serve concurrent with our terms. And then we also selected as a council 2 at-large planning commissioners that will serve 2-year terms. And so for my planning commissioner, I chose Marcelle Flowers, and she's a woman that's lived in Citrus Heights for a long time. She's the owner of Armstrong Plumbing, which some of you may be familiar with, and I was very, very impressed with her credentials, and I was very pleased when she accepted my offer to represent me on the Planning Commission. Our new council member, Portia Middleton, she chose Andrew Van Duker, who is the son of Bill Van Duker, the owner of All Star Printing, a family that's been in Citrus Heights for many, many years. And then Steve Miller chose Janelle Engel, who is a woman I don't personally know, but she had very good credentials, and she has been around the world of planning for a long time. And then at large, we chose Jack Duncan, who's coming back for one more term at 2 years. Many of you probably know Jack. He's been around for a long time. He was one of our founding fathers of cityhood. And then Tom Sheeler. And Tom Sheeler has been very active in his neighborhood association. He's a very intelligent man. I think this group of 5 people are going to be a good complement to our planning commission as they tackle some of the projects that come their way. So a couple things, just to dovetail off of the homelessness issue. We are in the process right now of offering our winter sanctuary to the homeless people in Citrus Heights. And this is an effort through our HEART organization, which is Homeless Assistance Resource Center. Yeah. Resource, thank you. Resource team. Anyway, through them and the number of churches in our community that actually house homeless people a week at a time and provide services for them, food and haircuts, all kinds of things. So that's going to go on through February and possibly longer if we have more churches step up to help. Our navigator, Tony Morgan, is doing a phenomenal job. She's this diminutive woman who knows our homeless community, and she works hand in hand with all the various services. Our police department helps us homeless get things like social security cards, they get ID. They can't do anything without ID, and so points people in the right direction who want help, and those that don't want help, then they are free to live their lives as they wish in that manner, as long as they don't break the law. And I'm sure you all know that homelessness in and of itself is not a crime. It's only that some of the behavior of homeless people causes them to get in trouble with law enforcement. I'm sure every time I talk to the public, they have questions about the mall. So I just want to let you know that the mall has been sold again. We don't know what's going to happen with the new group, because this just happened like 10 days ago. They have made some changes already with staffing and so forth. So stay tuned. We are I am very interested in engaging with them. The past owners, we had absolutely zero success engaging with them as a city. They owned the mall for about 4 years, and it was when I was mayor 3 years ago. It was the one goal I did not meet, which was to sit down face to face with the owners of the mall who are in New York, because they wouldn't respond to us. So we're hoping that this group of ownership will have a vision for our mall and be willing to work with the city so that we can create a viable, attractive amenity to Citrus Heights. As we all know, the old world of malls has gone the way of the dinosaur. It will never be a...
Do you mean Sunrise Mall?
I'm sorry, Sunrise Mall. Isn't that the mall for all of us in Citrus Heights? Yeah. So sorry, yeah. Yeah, Sunrise Mall, thank you, ma'am. So stay tuned. This is obviously going to be a long-term relationship and a long-term project, but I'm hopeful that it will be good for our city. We just approved Thursday night at our council meeting a project called Sunrise Point, and this is a low-income housing project, and along with that there's always some controversy because many people recognize the need for it but often don't want it close to them. So we had that reaction from some of the neighbors, but I got to tell you, I think this is a really viable project. It's going to be built on the old Abel's Christmas tree lot on Sunrise Boulevard. And it's aesthetically, the design is beautiful on this project. There will be 46 apartments. They will have an on-site 24-hour live-in site manager to take care of whatever needs to take care of. And Jamboree Housing, which is you can look them up on the website, Jamboree Developers. They have been developers a long time. They're a nonprofit in California. And they do low-income projects, and they do them very successfully. And they partnered with TLCS, which is an agency that provides services to people that have special mental health needs. And so about a third of the residents of this apartment complex will be people who need services. And they will have an on-site person who will be there during normal business hours. As we considered this project as a council, several of us took advantage of visiting two other projects that Jamboree and TLCS have done together in the Sacramento region. One is in West Sac, and it's a huge apartment complex. Looks kind of very modern and angular. And there's one in Folsom that is beautiful. It's been built around a tree-lined area. It fits well into the neighborhood. We were able to visit with some of the residents there. And this is not transitional housing. This is family-oriented, long-term housing. So we did approve that. We've continue to make some minor adjustments to really address the needs of the several people that live in the court that backs up to that housing. Took down, part of it will be 3 stories. We took that more forward to Sunrise Boulevard so that you don't have a 3rd story looking over in your backyard while you're swimming or something. So. Another thing that we've approved is the electric greenway. This is a multi-purpose trail. Several years ago, we did a complete... Am I talking too softly?
Louder.
Louder! Okay. Thank you, David.
And I'm very seasoned in these.
That's okay. I'm usually don't have that problem, so I will speak louder. The Electric Greenway is a 3-mile multi-purpose pathway that will be starting on the north end of, I'm very directionally challenged, but it's basically starting in my backyard off of Watchtell. It's going to be following the Smud Easeway electric easeways throughout Citrus Heights and Orangevale back into Citrus Heights, and will be ending at the Arcade Creek Park there on Sunrise. It is part of a much larger study that we did citywide several years ago to look at any viable location we could have to have a trailway that might follow our natural creek beds. Many of the properties are not suitable for that because they're literally in someone's backyard. But this particular project is exciting because it doesn't impact private property.
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay. Talk to me, okay?
Yeah, we have.
Talk to me. Thank you. My understanding is that it borders some property, and if there's issues, we'll deal with them on a
100% between two different properties on.
Okay, well then talk to me later and we'll talk about that, because we definitely want this to be an amenity that is favorable to our entire community. Let's see, what else have I got here? Sunrise Point, Winter Sanctuary, the mall, and the Electric Greenway. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover tonight, and then we can start the Q&A.
I heard you mention a new housing.
Uh-huh.
What kind of employment will there be for right here in Citrus Heights, for anyone who's going to buy into new housing?
Okay, that's a very good question. We have a number of projects that are in various stages of being approved. One of them is a surgery center right up here on Sylvan and Stock Ranch Road. I believe personally that economic development starts with jobs. You know, the housing will come, the sales tax dollars will come, but it starts with jobs. So we have started having a medical presence in Citrus Heights with the medical building. This will be our second large project that's in the medical and the healthcare field. So one of the things I would like to do is explore what else is out there in that field that could bring jobs to Citrus Heights. One of our big opportunities is to purchase and then have control over what happens to the old Sylvan School site. So as you know, as a built-out community, we don't have the same opportunities that Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova, Folsom, and some of these other cities that have raw land. We don't have raw land in Citrus Heights other than small infill projects. And so when we get a project like this, we consider ourselves very fortunate. And so I think that we have the capability of drawing more healthcare oriented businesses into Citrus Heights, and that's one of my goals during my term, is to research that and see what that looks like. Thank you.
Now, one thing that the county did recently is we did a study on our retail centers and in 2018, and one of the things that they learned was retail as we knew it is changing, and so the malls that are able to repurpose themselves and gear themselves to what people are wanting today are the ones that are going to be successful. And what people are, today people go out to have dinner or be entertained, and they might shop while they're out there. Yesterday, it used to be they would go to the mall and they might eat or go to the movie while they're there. It's totally turned around, and there's a lot of businesses that have gone online. But there are jobs, and the jobs, the way we look at jobs in the county, it's not just Citrus Heights jobs for Citrus Heights residents. There's a radius that you look at, and it's your immediate target market, and then there's a radius outside that, and there's a radius outside that, and what kinds of people do you impact, and what are the demographics. And so there's a lot of communities like Antelope and Citrus Heights and Orangeville where people live there, but they work somewhere else. And so there's a lot of great things happening in Sacramento and Placer and surrounding counties in the 6-county region. So this is a huge, they're talking about how this is the 4th large economy in California because we're behind everyone else. Everything is more affordable here, so there's more opportunity for growth for people to come here because they can't afford to start up in the Bay Area or LA.
I have one more thing I need to bring up that I forgot about. This is important too, and I just didn't write it down. The City Council has been faced with something that we weren't anticipating more than a month ago. The day after our election was certified, our city attorney received a certified letter from a lawyer named Kevin Shankman out of Malibu, who's made it his career to sue cities and force them to change from at-large voting to district voting. And so there is a law in the books that went on the books, I think in early 2000s, 2002 or 3, that's called the California Voters Act. And the purpose of the law was, and I don't argue the purpose of the law. I just argue the way that it is being used. The purpose of the law is to bring underrepresented minority people the opportunity to vote and to elect people where they feel like they're disenfranchised and underrepresented. As an example would be a city where you have a poverty pocket of either African Americans or Latinos, Hispanics, Asians, something other than Caucasian people. So this law was updated in about 2015, which made it easier for those who want to sue cities to force districts to do so. You can go online and learn tons of stuff about Mr. Shankman and this whole act. But about 3 years ago, the city of Palmdale was sued by Mr. Shankman representing basically Latino, Hispanic group, nonprofit group of people that want to get more Hispanics to vote. I have no problem with that. I think everybody should have the right to vote and should be encouraged to vote. And in this particular situation, there was a pocket of Latino people living on this side of town, and all 5 of the council members came from that side of town. And so they fought this. They lost. It cost them $7 million. From there, they went to Costa Mesa, a bunch of Orange County cities, Lancaster, Santa Monica. Every single city that Mr. Shankman has sued has lost. And they, even a city that is a charter city, we're a general law city. There are 2 kinds of laws under which you can form a city. This charter city, in their charter said, we will never have districts that's against our charter. Went to court, they lost. So last year Elk Grove got the letter, and they just kind of chose to ignore it. And so Mr. Shankman has told us they're coming back. They've hit us up, West Sac, and Concord. So he's moving north. He's moving north. He's going to hit every single city in California. Doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. They looked at apparently looked at our census statistics of 2010 and saw that 16% or so of our population is Hispanic, and we have no Hispanics on our city council, and that was enough for them to write us the letter with the intent to sue. So,
You're legally or not?
pardon me?
The Hispanics that he's talking about here legally or not?
Well, they're talking about, I don't know, that's a good question. They're just a raw number, and he hasn't had to prove his statistic, it's just what he threw out there. So my contention is, yes, maybe we have 16% Hispanic people. but we all live amongst each other. You know, the Slavics, the Europeans, the Asians. In my neighborhood of about 120 houses, I have all kinds of races. And I have, you know, single family homes, I've got family homes, I've got all, you know, I think we all live together. I think we're pretty homogenous in Citrus Heights as far as our love for our community and our love for one another as a whole. So, because we don't have millions of dollars to fight a lawsuit that we would probably lose based on he's very open about it, he's never lost a case. We voted Thursday night to take the first step to look into it. It's a process. We had 45 days to respond to his letter, and that ended this coming week. So we got in under the wire. I just want you to be aware of it. The Sentinel, our online newsletter or newspaper has written about it. It was in the Bee. It's beginning to make the news because it's not just Citrus Heights. If this prevails, that means that each of us who runs for public office must live in the district we're running for, and only the people in that district can vote for us. Which means that every person in Citrus Heights will be represented by 80% of the people that they couldn't vote for. So you'll have one council member that you can vote for, however many run in your district. But the other 4 that get elected, you'll have no say. And you can only vote once every 4 years. So I personally think this is devastating to Citrus Heights. I don't know if there's an answer beyond just going through this process. There's lots of different suggestions. One is that we put a ballot measure on the ballot in 2020 and we get a directly elected mayor, and we split into 4 districts and have the mayor that everybody can vote for if you're forced to only vote for your own council member. We'll see what happens with it, but I want you to be aware of it. So in 2020, if this goes forward and we are forced to comply, the next election will be district elections. We who were elected in 2018 will be able to serve out our 4 years at large, and then when our time comes up, whether we run again or someone else runs, it will be by district if this law stands in Citrus Heights. And to take it to the absurd, because I think in big cities there's probably you could make a case for this because there's a lot of population. But you take a city like Ileton, who I think the top vote getter got 47 votes. You know, it doesn't make sense for a little tiny delta town of 1,800 people to have to split into districts. So I just want you to be aware of it. There'll probably be a lot more said about it. You might hear misinformation. If you do, feel free to email me through the city's website, and I'll be happy to respond to anybody who reaches out to me. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how will you pick the districts?
We will have to hire, good question. We'll hire a demographer, someone who does this for a profession, and they will analyze our population, our natural lines of division, and we'll have a lot of community outreach. We are going to have a number of community meetings on this, so stay tuned because we want your input. And by law, we need to do that anyway, but we want it. So that this could move very quickly. We have 90 days to put this in place, and if with permission, we can extend it another 90 days. So it's happening very quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Jamie, resident for 18 years here. I'm just wondering if there's any immediate impact to funding because of this lawsuit. Like, how much money is that? Is that already
Very good question.
Did he have allocated money for these situations?
Obviously, we're working with our current budget, which is from July to June. Because we have responded within the time frame, it caps what this attorney can earn by sending us this letter to $30,000. So that was why we did it. It capped what we have to pay him. But we are going to have to pay him something just because he wrote us the letter.
What a racket.
I have a question for Supervisor Frost. And I'm extremely hard of hearing. 2 hearing aids don't always help. I received a letter from you dated 12/1/18. And this is in regards to under the Fair Housing Act and the Fair Employment and Housing Act, discrimination in housing, rentals, sales, and financing is illegal. Now, I don't have a computer, so I can't go in and see what this actually says. So can you explain to me, in the area of sales of a home, what does that actually mean?
Okay, what her question is that she's asking about a letter that I sent out from my office. My office periodically sends out letters just asking for your opinion. It says, email me and tell me what you think. It might be about, this one was about, if you know of anyone who, there are protections that can protect you against, from being discriminated against. If you know of anyone, basically, who is suffering from this, let us know. It's, this is talking about fair housing. It's talking about landlords that maybe are not keeping properties, up to code. It's talking about services that the county can offer. You're asking me about discrimination on rentals and sales.
Not rental, on the
Okay.
sale of my home, this lady's home, somebody else's home. What does that mean? It says discrimination against housing sales. What does that mean?
So under the Fair Housing Act and Fair Employment and Housing Act, we cannot discriminate against anyone for race, color, creed, gender. We cannot say, oh, you won't want to live in this area. They don't want this color here, or we can't discriminate, and so we can't steer people to one neighborhood just because they're not we don't think they fit. We're the realtors and those people who are selling their homes are obligated to be fair in the way they treat people. So
Well,
it's
I've
just
always thought that, but
in the old days, a long time ago, there were what they called redlined districts, and there were cases where people did not want to integrate. Our society nowadays has changed quite a bit. I think we are technically the most diverse region in the United States. We're an example of the future to the rest of the United States because we have such a varied nationalities. We all live together, black, white, South Pacific, Asian, Vietnamese, Ukraine. I'm trying to think. There's so many, I can't remember them all.
and I'm going to hone in on that a little bit more.
Okay.
Supposing an individual puts a home up for sale, say $400,000, and gets a couple of offers. Mine isn't anywhere near that. I'm using that number as an example. And someone says, I want that house for $200,000.
No, it's not like that. Like say you put your house up for sale and you get 5 offers and some of them need financing, some of them one person can pay all cash. And that person wants to pay less. But you like that offer, or they want to pay less for your house, but you like that offer best because they have cash and you can close quickly. You can decide that you want to sell your house for less over the other offers because you like the terms of the deal. It's not about that. It's just you can't decide not to sell your house to them because they're black or Asian or because you don't want them living in your house because there's someone you don't like.
Okay. All right.
You can't discriminate against them, and in the law, it's very specific on what you cannot discriminate on. It's race, color, creed, I can't remember all of them, there's 5 or 6 of them. Okay. Sexual orientation, age, children. So you can't say, oh, I don't want to sell my house to you because you're 90 and I don't think you can pay the 30-year loan. I don't know, you know. I don't know. Okay, I hope I answered that right. And those letters, I have an amazing staff, and they research and they look for issues that they think people will, that we think people will want to think about and know that there are resources that can protect you if you feel you've been discriminated against. You know, there are laws in place that protect you as a citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and then Dave in the back, you first.
If I understood you right in your presentation, you said that homeless people, your count of homeless people was raising up or getting more in our area.
Well,
But is it possible that, or has anybody looked at, the reason it's going up is because everybody says they've got a better deal in this area now than they have over here, we'll move over here.
Okay, so first I'm going to answer. The first question is, in your presentation you said homelessness is increasing. In 2016, the point in time count was around 2,600 or something like that. In 2017, it was around 3,600. We're getting ready to do, or it might have been 17 and 18, we're getting ready to do the January 2019. We're anticipating it's going to go up. So we don't know that the count that we're doing is exact, because sometimes homeless people don't want to be counted. They're back in the bushes. But what we do know is the trend of those that do want to be counted or willing to be counted is going up. So we do know that. Okay.
My question is the reason possibly because of all the goodies you're providing for them? And they say,
And so-
I can get a better deal if I move to that area.
One thing we have done is we have studied extensively, and I know Citrus Heights has, and Jeannie will want to probably comment on this too, but at the county, we have foster children that are aging out of the system at 18 and they're not ready to be on their own, and they're ending up being human trafficked and on drugs. We have families that somehow they lost their job and they lost their apartment, they got evicted, and now they don't know how to get back and get a job because they don't know how to get a shower to get a job. We have drug addiction, opioid, meth epidemic that is killing, that is just killing us. We have mental health issues that are unintended consequence of policy, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, from decades ago where we shut down all the mental health facilities. We don't have enough mental health resources for people. So homelessness is very complex, and there are some people out there that are homeless who do not want to come in. They like being homeless. We also have 24% of our homeless are veterans. And so our veteran population is at high risk. So we do know it's very complex. There's a lot of reasons. I do think probably when I do know that I was told by the policymakers in Placerville when they opened that tent city in Placerville, they had all these people move in. They formed this beautiful homeless community. They loved it. Then they brought them food, and they picked up their garbage and emptied their toilets, and all of a sudden they started calling their friends down in LA saying, you got to get up here. We're in the Pines. This is beautiful. And they had people coming clear from LA. It grew so fast and so big, it became a huge burden on the town, and they had to actually close it. And people didn't want to move out of it because it was a wonderful community. They were like family. And so when they did finally close it down, all of them dispersed within a week or two. They were gone.
Confiscate their cell phones.
So my last comment on that is the county is the last resort for the indigent. So we have a responsibility. We have funding that is specific to those who cannot take care of themselves, who cannot care for themselves. So I I hear you. I hear you. You have anything to add to that?
This lady here wanted to make a comment.
Do you have any kind of educated guesstimate on the increase in homeless due to the Paradise Fire? Like, how many of those displaced people might land here?
I have heard through, first of all, our city manager, that's a very good question, by the way. Our city manager is one of 4 city managers throughout Northern California who is very proactively working with the city manager of Paradise, not only to provide services, because we've opened up our community center to folks that needed a place, but also to just assist them get their infrastructure going again. So we're real close to this issue, and he reported to us that, to the best of his knowledge, everybody that was involved in the Paradise Fire has either been housed or has relocated. And actually, in church last week, we have a sister church in Paradise where I go to church, and their pastors came in and spoke to us and said that within their congregation, first of all, nobody died. That was a blessing. But they have, sadly, some have relocated to other states and so forth, but the residents in the city of Paradise have all found a place to stay. There's nobody on the streets as a result of that fire. That's the best information that I've been told. And so that's a very good question. Yeah.
And I promised David Warren, he's next.
Nice, go ahead, let people, I'll get in touch with you.
Oh, go ahead. You're next,
Okay.
buddy, and then you're next. I promised him before. Sorry. I didn't want to break a promise.
Rather than a question, I have a comment, and it's a great segue from the homeless issue.
Okay.
You can't do it just with Sacramento County. It has to be a regional solution. And it strikes me that Sacramento County can start the ball rolling, because as you pointed out, when they tried it in El Dorado County, it didn't work because it was only there. I would think that the Board of Supervisors can easily allocate a part-time position to answer phones and direct to voicemail, recruit some of the members of our community in social services and civilians who've been involved in this kind of thing in the past, and garner similar individuals in the surrounding counties to set up a regional group activity similar to the Sacramento Yolo Vector Control, the flood district, which involves all the counties. Because if you're only going to do it in Sacramento County, and it's not going to work because we've got the cities, the county, and then the cities and counties around us. Now is your opportunity, not you specifically, but the county, to get the ball rolling to solve the problem by getting everybody together, which will then drag in the state legislators from this area to fund the program, instead of trying to do it in bits and pieces, which is doomed to failure.
My understanding is that the state may be adding to some of the funding around homelessness, and I do want you to know that I have had conversations. The Gathering Inn in Roseville actually offered to help Our Heart if they to get up and running initially. They said you can bring people from Citrus Heights to Roseville churches and then bus them back to Citrus Heights in the morning. So there is collaboration across county lines, I know that, and that's a good thought and a good idea, something definitely to think about, because political lines don't stop with human lives always. Yes.
Oh, I took your survey.
Oh, you took it?
Yeah.
Good.
So there was one question I had, several, but one was the $55 million that the county spent on homelessness.
I think it's more like 60 million, but
The survey had 55,
Yeah, I
I
know.
believe, but
it's over 50. It's a lot.
it sounds like a lot. I was wondering, what does that entail? What's the breakdown? How do we spend $55 million on homelessness?
Well, first of all, let me say this. A lot of the funding that we get at the county is funding that comes from the state or the federal government. And that money has requirements attached to it. The county has less than 17% of our overall $4.2 billion budget that is what we call discretionary, or money that we can spend on whatever we think is important. The rest of all of our programs, a lot of those social services programs are coming from Medi-Cal or CalWORKS, or they're coming from programs where the state says, we'll give you this amount of money if you'll set aside and match it with this amount of money, and if you'll do with it, do this, that, and that with it. So a very big portion of our overall county budget has one or two of our hands tied behind our back, and we don't control necessarily the money. But what we do is we go after as much money as we can to get as much done as we can, and that ends up working these programs. And so it's complex. I had someone in my Antelope meeting last night, in fact, very irritated with me, who said, I want to know how much of that money is administrative. How much of it are you paying, how much is actually getting to the homeless problem, or is it all just you growing government type thing? And the challenge with trying, and I told him I would try to quantify, how much are we spending, in what area, how much is for administrative, and how much is going to services, and how much is quantifiable, real things. Well, I don't know really how to quantify that, because a lot of the services around homelessness are counseling, drug therapy. It's not really a product. It's not something you deliver. It's a service. It is services. And you have to hire people to do it, or you have to contract with nonprofits to do it, which we do. We all do, to outsource. So it's a complex growing problem. In my personal opinion, I think it's policy driven in a lot of ways. And I think there's multiple causes. Drugs, opioid epidemic, mental health, housing, high cost of housing, because all of our California policies are driving the cost of housing up. Seniors on fixed incomes, price of everything going up, pricing them out of house and home. Veterans, who we can't seem to connect with services well enough, ever. So, there's so many things that we could do better, but we want to. We're trying.
Yeah. And how does that work with the city? How do you guys work together on this homeless problem? Sorry,
Well, that's okay, and that's a good question, because our police department and the sheriff's department do work hand in hand. Our navigator, we have one, but she's made a tremendous difference. She's actually training navigators in other parts of the county to replicate her services. She is actually an employee of Self-Help Housing, which is a county organization, and we pay them for her. She belongs to Citrus Heights. So we are integrated, and there's no fine line where one stops and the other starts, because homelessness doesn't know boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know boundaries. There are homeless people that are in Citrus Heights because they grew up in Citrus Heights and they don't want to leave Citrus Heights. Some of them are here because they say our police department treats them better than other police departments do. So that addresses the lady's question earlier about, are we attracting them because we're so nice or we provide services? There are a lot of homeless that we don't see. We're talking about people that live on the streets, and they're the ones that are most impactful to us as a community. But would you be surprised to know that within the San Juan Unified School District, within Citrus Heights, we have 800 students that don't have a permanent home that are in Citrus Heights, and they're couch surfing, and they're living with a relative this week and a friend that week because their parents have lost their home. But we don't see them because they're not living in their cars on the streets or in a campsite. So it would be one thing if we could define homelessness finitely, but it's impossible. Homelessness has many faces. The church that I go to, I mentioned earlier, we are part of the Gathering Inn. And I have sat at a table with homeless people and said, so tell me your story. It is amazing, the stories that are out there. Some are temporarily homeless, other people have been homeless for a long time, many have addictions, but not all. Some just don't know how to get out of it. There are some who prefer to live that way. But homelessness is so multifaceted, it's hard to get your arms around it. So, but you make your question is good, you know. It's not like we stop at this boundary and then say, okay, Sheriff Department, now it's your problem. We all work together.
And I do want to say that the county, and after this, I'm going to take one more question, and then out of respect for everyone's time, we'll end, but we'll be here as long as you guys want. If you have questions, I'll stay as long as you want. But I just wanted to say, if you have a pocket of homelessness, and you need more county resources, call us, because the county can augment. We can work with Citrus Heights and bring more people in if you need us. There was one woman back here that raised her hand. Was it you? Okay.
Are you seeing any success then with the mentally ill, homeless? Is it helping? Are you seeing any of the success
We have
stories at all? from
we've
them?
had some.
Because you just put 47 of them in my neighborhood. I live in that neighborhood. There's a bill.
Well, I can tell you about these affordable housing complexes. This may be partially mentally ill, but I want to say that what's really beautiful about this.
Treatment?
Yes, what's happening with these affordable housing complexes is there is an on-site service there on site to help people during the day. And what seems to end up happening is if they're challenged, say they have schizophrenia and they just need to make sure they take their medication. The on-site person helps make sure they get their medication. Some people are transitioning out of a hospital, but they're not ready to be on their own yet. And what happens when you put them into a community, what they're finding with these types of communities, is if 30% is the mentally challenged, whatever you want to call it, they meld into that community, and other community members kind of wrap around them and watch out for them. They understand that they have a little challenge, and they watch out for them. Maybe in the first year or two, they rely on services more, but as time goes by, the community kind of picks up where that leaves off. And so what they're finding is that community seems to be wrapping around them. This is not like putting them in one big mental health asylum and they're walking down the halls with some are catatonic and it's so depressing you'd want to go crazy just to escape it. It's not like that. It's a community. And these apartments are nice. And these are people, maybe a senior who is living on Social Security. She's a widow. She has no other income. And I know people like that in Citrus Heights who are paying $1,150 a month for a studio apartment. And they make $1,700 a month on Social Security. I don't know how they make it. By the time they pay their utilities and their food and their car, and they're calling me saying, Sue, do you know I could do things? I could do a part-time job that would help me. If they raise my rent one more time, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And so these affordable housing complexes, these are not losers. These are regular people on a low fixed income, and how they calculate their rent is it's 30% of their income.
Yeah, so it's subsidized.
So if they make $1,000 a month, their rent is $300. That's doable. But when you're living in a studio for $1,200 a month, that's not doable. So I would venture to say that once it gets built, you're going to find it to be well maintained. There's services there. If there's problems, there's someone you can go to. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. And it's actually, I think it's going to help a lot of good people who didn't know how they were going to make it otherwise.
It's a gated community too, which protects everybody.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you for coming. I hope you signed. I hope you come back. I hope you found it informative. If there's anything we can do, call us. Thank you for coming. And I was gonna say, if I end on time, I think everyone should give me a standing ovation, but since I
So we're 5 minutes late. Oh, no.
I can't end on time. I'm a mess. Talk too much.
Good job.
Thank you. Hi.